everyone, and welcome to the Venture Playbook Podcast by SIA. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the world of venture building, innovation, and growth, speaking with leaders who are pushing the boundaries in their respective industries. I'm your host today, Emily Orlik. I'm an innovation manager here at SIA, and today I have the privilege of speaking with a fantastic guest and innovation leader, Dupsy Abiola. It's fair to say that Dupsy has had a fascinating career. She started out in the world of law as a commercial barrister before turning to more entrepreneurial endeavours. She launched a successful hiring platform for interns, which she pitched to the Dragons on Dragon's Den and which got acquired several years later. She advised early-stage technology startups, supported female founders, and still today she's imparting her wisdom and experience as strategic advisor to the Venture Cafe, a network of innovators that has recently launched in London. To be honest with you, this is just scratching the surface. Dupsy was head of global innovation at International Airlines Group. Later, she was chief of staff at Monzo, and still today she sits on the board at Essentra, a FTSE 250 manufacturer and distributor of industrial components. Even this doesn't cover it all, an absolutely fascinating career indeed. Dupsy, welcome to the podcast. We're so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you about innovation, which is, as you've already mentioned, one of the things that I feel most passionately about.
Wonderful. And we will get into that straight away. So, as an innovation leader, with all your experiences and insights into different industries and challenges, be that with startups or scale-ups or established global corporates, I'm wondering, what does innovation mean to you?
So I think this is a really great question because I think the meaning of innovation is different within different organizations and also has a different complexion depending on the stage of the organization as well. So as I have had the wonderful privilege of supporting businesses from huge FTSE 100 companies, who have been established for hundreds of years. Innovation means a very different thing there than at smaller startups where effectively every day you're creating something new and you're trying to produce something, birth something into the world that is fundamentally different than what you're seeing. So innovation is very much core when you're at a startup or a scale up in many cases. But in the corporate world, I think it's a very different thing because usually by the time a corporate is very large, it has it really understands, or it feels that it understands what its market is, and the whole organization is really designed to do that. So change is not really something that large corporates like. They like the control of being able to deliver what they're doing today, and they aren't always thinking about what they're doing tomorrow unless that's part of the business that they're running. So I like to think about larger innovation, and this rule probably cuts across a bunch of different kinds of organizations at the top tier in what I like to call the 4 Ps of innovation success. So that's priority. So thinking through, leadership. So it has to be C-suite and board ownership owned. What do they really see as being the core problems that the customers are having in the market? What are the things that the organization really wants to see? And, what's that vision? It has to come from the top. And then it has the right level of priority, especially the larger you get in an organization. It's extremely important to get that buy-in. Then I would say strategy alignment, so strategic alignment and mission. So innovations in large corporations that aren't strategically aligned have a tendency to be a little bit smaller. Sometimes you get a situation where they can be deprioritized. So making sure that they're up front and center is really important. And then, ambitious targets. And then, so priority is the first P, people is the second. So culture is everything when it comes to innovation. Having that diversity of team, a dedicated budget, an entrepreneurial mindset, all of those things are really, really important. And then process. So open ideation, structured in goals. I mean, experimentation is really important in the ability to kind of go forward. And I'd say the most important P of the four is permission to fail forward. Most of the time, innovation isn't successful, often by design. It's about trying new things, and not all new things are going to land. So having a suite of experiments, some of which are really moonshot and some of which are more predictable, are an important part of getting that recipe right, in my view.
Brilliant. Thank you. I love that. The 4 Ps of innovation success. Thank you for that. I'm curious to know a bit more, just changing tack slightly, a bit more about you and your personal and professional journey. So I know that you were named in Computer Weekly's top 50 influential women in tech, a great accolade. Were there some key moments or stories in your career that led to this?
I am always really delighted when I am recognised by Computer Weekly or the FT and the various other things that I have been voted for. I'm also really delighted that often the awards that I get put forward for are nominated by my peers, which means a lot to me, or people would have put me forward. And I think it's difficult to know or to highlight any one particular thing, but one thing I would say uh, really expands across my career is I really try and support other founders. I'm really passionate about technology. I love being surrounded by people who are trying to do really world-changing things, drawing them into organizations, also empowering other people to see their ideas to fruition is something that I find to be extremely energizing. And I found that the teams that I've worked with have found it, really in difficult circumstances, which it always is when you're trying to do new things, especially when you're not sure whether they can succeed. I think I've been really fortunate to have worked with some amazing teams. So the companies that you've already highlighted, I managed to work amongst some of really the best innovators in the world. I've been extremely fortunate. At IAG, you have access to some of the best engineers in the planet when it comes to safety and thinking through how to do extraordinary things within the sphere of aviation. I've worked in fintech alongside senior leadership at Monzo, who are some of the most dedicated and creative people trying to really change the industry in a customer focused manner. I have had the opportunity as an entrepreneur myself to work with a ton of amazing organizations, from hiring for the government. I did all the tech, I supported the tech entry level talent hiring for the DWP, for example, but also scale ups like Halo back in the day. I've really been fortunate to be surrounded by just the most amazing people. So working alongside and with teams of amazing innovators has certainly helped me. And I always like to shout out what I describe as my tribe, which is this amazing group of female founders that I went to San Francisco with almost 10 years ago. I didn't know them at all. And now we meet up all the time. And amongst them, we have CEOs of amazing scale ups. We've got NEDs for large innovation organizations, leaders of all kinds. So surrounding myself with amazing people, both in terms of network, but also in terms of the teams that I've had the privilege of working with, has certainly helped me throughout my career.
Well, brilliant. I mean, we can certainly amplify that shout out to the tribe you mentioned, and yeah, what a magical set of experiences that you've had throughout your career, and being surrounded by clearly so many inspiring people. You mentioned their International Airlines Group, and you were there for over 5 years. I understand. So,
Yeah.
sustainability is a challenge area that inevitably comes up a lot in our conversations with our clients. So, I'm curious
Mm.
about your experience there, and what did you learn about in terms of how to innovate for sustainability at an organization like this?
Sure. So I think it starts with really making it a priority, like I'd said at the beginning. So the four P's definitely apply. You need priority, you need the right people, um, processes, and permission to fail. Because when we're talking about sustainability, in some instances, we're talking about really leveraging emerging technologies or technologies that are just sort of being able to be ready to scale. So it might be looking at and supporting teams who are very rapidly producing the future technologies that we need to see. And so many of the things that I worked on at IAG, we over those years managed to create an amazing process of really finding and identifying um, real outliers when it comes to the key priorities for the business. So, for aviation, for example, sustainable aviation fuel is really important, and really getting to grips with low carbon technologies is great. We've worked with a number of really world leading companies whilst I was there that I helped along with my team to find. So, and there, back then we found them often at seed stage. So they had some technologies that were extremely promising. It's post lab, so there's something to scale up. And so there's a number of different ways that we can utilize our subject matter experts within the business and our assets, technology, and know how to help really build support for a lot of these technologies. So, SAF and low carbon, we did a number of projects, sustainable operations, and also interesting flight tech, so solutions that make flight more efficient. Some amazing examples of companies that we supported whilst I was there was Zero Avia, which is now, I think it was named Times uh, top 100 inventions of the century or something like that last year. But we found them at seed. We worked with 12, which is just announced, I think, over $1 billion in fund in both equity and debt funding for carbon capture. Some really amazing companies. So I was just looking back on many of the amazing companies that we had worked with, and the 23 climate tech projects that I worked on. Whilst I was, or the major ones that we worked on, a large number, but 23 major ones. I'm pleased to say that they're all still alive, which isn't always the case when we're dealing with startups and scale ups. And phenomenally, those teams have gone on to raise over 2 billion in funding, which really is exciting when you think about the possibility and potential of some of these solutions.
That's brilliant to hear that they're all still existing, and more than that, I think sounds like they're positively thriving. So I think
Yeah.
very exciting times ahead. I was wondering, connected to this, so what's your view if we consider the more hard to abate, hard to
Mm,
ignore industries? How on earth do we make meaningful progress to net zero there?
sure. I think there is this new emerging category that I think um, needs to be thought through within organizations, especially at the industry level. which is sustainability enablers. So, depending on where you are, I think a lot of companies are extremely passionate about reducing or improving their climate uh, um, consciousness, and ensuring that their operations are planet positive, which is great. But thinking through exactly how you do that, and creating that easy scaffolding to getting there, can be quite challenging if you don't have dedicated talent or dedicated thinking or know-how about exactly how you're going to go from the aspiration to the implementation, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot. I mean, we've been talking about those projects that we've worked on, and they're at different phases, some of which were as early as pre-seed, or just after, really early seed. So almost lab projects, all the way through to things that we had rolled, robotic solutions that were rolled out across large parts of the operation. So I would say, when it comes to hard to abate and hard to ignore, I think there's really a lot of energy, a lot of capital going in. I think there are some amazing statistics. I appreciate that uh, there is a lot to do in that particular space, but I think last year 90 billion invested globally, at least in climate tech startups, which is really amazing. But really supporting those teams beyond initial funding, getting them to their first of a kind plants, getting them past the post, getting into implementation is really where the real battlefield is. And I've spent the last year really having amazing conversations and very in-depth conversations with a number of corporates and hundreds of startups, really asking them how to solve that particular issue. And one of the things that becomes really clear is actually there, in some cases, there are technologies which are convenient, climate positive, and in some cases even cost effective, which corporates just aren't aware of. So I've been thinking and talking to climate tech investors and various others about how we can make it a lot easier to surface these technologies and these startups, because there isn't really a dedicated department within procurement, for example, that is really geared towards helping find these suppliers, because for most large corporates, and a lot of the climate or carbon footprint in our sits within large corporates one way or another. The challenge is in the supply chain. So how do you surface and find those players who are capable of moving the needle forward in a positive way? And I think there's a lot of really exciting opportunity in that particular space, which is around implementation, but maybe doesn't get as much of the highlight, or people don't talk about as much.
Definitely. So it's about bridging the gap as well, I suppose, right, between climate tech suppliers and large corporates. And that gap can seem quite wide sometimes. So how can we shrink
100%.
it?
Yeah.
I suppose it also connects to the wider innovation ecosystem, and really creating an enabling environment for these potentially hugely impactful solutions to come to the fore. I know you're involved in Venture Cafe, and I know that's premised on the insight that innovation happens through community, diversity of thought, bringing together this range of players. How do you see the Venture Cafe and what that's bringing to the UK really impacting and improving the innovation ecosystem here?
Yeah, I mean, I think for people who haven't heard about it yet, Venture Cafe is a global innovation network. I think it's one of the largest innovation networks in the world. It's located in over 20 locations globally, and it brings together an open platform for in-person networking. So on Thursday, where they host what they call a Thursday gathering in partnership with local tech and innovation communities, really opening the door for founders, investors, policymakers, researchers, scientists to all come together a little bit like a salon of old. There are. I was at Oxford and for undergrad when I was reading law, and there are these amazing stories about the great minds and thinkers who would come together in pubs and talk with, you'd have literary heroes talking with top scientists and cross-pollinating ideas. It's that idea at scale. And the thinking is when you have a regular possibility of opening up your surface area for serendipity, so meeting people who are interested and supportive, you can find and expedite solutions for your problems and grow your businesses faster. So Venture Cafe has just launched in London, which is its first UK hub, alongside ARIA, which is the Advanced Research and Invention Agency, and it's based at 40 in King's Cross in London, in Jellicoe building. We take over the whole of the bottom of that building, and we really just open up a space for individuals to come. And organizations to come. So we partner with, great initiatives like next week, we are hosting a Future of Health event alongside Cambridge University Health Partners, for example. And it's really an opportunity to showcase emerging startups who are doing amazing things, to really explore the art of the possible, but more importantly, improve the ability of amazing founders, researchers, and corporates who are looking to do something greater, to find one another and solve each other's problems. I had a wonderful conversation with a gentleman who had been to over 60 venture cafes across the world, venture cafe events across the world. And he was saying that the beauty of coming, I asked him why he comes so often. And he said, the beauty of coming to a venture cafe event is not just the people that you meet to and the interesting conversations that you have on the day, but in that kind of 6 degrees type way, if you talk to them about something that you're working on, they might know someone who knows someone. It's that third, that second and third tier set of connections who can really connect you to an opportunity that unlocks everything. And that's very central to the ethos out of MIT, which is where the first venture cafe was born, and is often credited with the success of places like Silicon Valley, really getting that closeness of connection. Really excited to be a strategic advisor to help support the launch of Venture Cafe, and ARIA really see it as a way to support the community and create a safe space for the type of ambitious moonshot thinkers who are coming together in droves across London, and really beginning to create some of the most exciting technology companies that we'll be seeing over the next kind of from now to over the next couple of years.
Well, we will all be watching this space. I love that idea of creating those moments of serendipity to really fuel solutions, and actually the proactivity, right, to do that as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Dupsy. The final question that I would love to ask you today is, what are you most excited about?
So there is so much to be excited about. Almost there's too much to be excited about, I think. I, like everyone, have been watching the generative AI space and AI in general really blossom over the last couple of years in amazing ways. And as a individual, utilizing AI has really increased my personal productivity. I would say as much as 5 or 6 fold, which is phenomenal on a day-to-day basis across my personal and professional life, at least, which is phenomenal. And it's amazing how quickly the adoption of that technology is going, and I find that there's a lot of real kinetic energy in that space. Certainly at the venture cafe level, where we have seen some really amazing utilizations of that technology in everything from health to climate to weather prediction. Speaking to the winners of a hackathon who have managed to do amazing things relating to that thinking. So I think all things AI is important, but I also think there's a lot of concerns about how to make that technology more efficient. It's incredibly energy intensive, and there's a lot of concern about how we're going to offset the additional um, processing power that is required and the knowledge that is being gained with the infrastructural and energy intensity of that process. I still remain extremely bullish on the amazing people who are working on climate technologies. We had an event at Venture Cafe yesterday where on the stage was a person that I know relatively well who and went to college with, who is on his umpteenth successful startup called Lightstate. And he's looking at infrastructure of EVs, and how to combine that with interesting use of load balancing to make it a super efficient process, and but also offering a customer proposition which makes people want to use these technologies, because as these technologies get rolled out, creating the customer base and scaling up that new way of doing things is really interesting. We also saw and have seen some amazing circularity startups, so circular economy startups, who are embedding into the fabric of their product biodegradability or the ability to return. So amazing companies who are embedding into the business model. So business model innovations relating to when you buy something such as clothes, it has intrinsic value and can be purchased back, a little bit like what you do with your iPhone, potentially. Super interesting companies who are doing interesting things with biodegradable technology. We saw a company recently that is using graphene to create a fully biodegradable thread that can be implemented into any type of clothing. They're focusing on spandex replacement. I mean, so many really creative and amazing things happening in the climate tech and circularity space, alongside a lot of amazing deep tech. So, I mean, I spend a lot of my time and my day constantly talking with founders who are blowing my mind with the things that they're planning to do in quantum, in AI, in climate tech, in pretty much everything that you can think of. I think things can sometimes feel uncertain in the world. There's a lot of volatility, but it is also wonderful to see the level of creativity that exists, and the amazing people who are creating the future as we speak. And I feel very fortunate to be, pretty close to being able to see the coalface of a lot of this stuff happening with the interface of the different things that I get to do on a day-to-day basis.
Definitely sounds like a fascinating role and position that you have there, engaging with so many startups, and what like fascinating and transformative solutions that you've just mentioned there. So thank you for inspiring all of us. I think that's a brilliant note to end things on. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Venture Playbook podcast, and for all the fantastic insights. If people want to follow your endeavors, or connect with you, or maybe hear more about all these inspiring startups that you've mentioned today, what's the best way for them to do this?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. I'm always working on a bunch of different things, supporting corporates all the way to seed and pre-concept startups. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Dupsy Abiola, or go to dupsyabiola.com. And I hope that anyone who's in London or in either of the two hub cities that we will be launching and announcing pretty soon should come and see us at the Venture Cafe, where they can meet the Venture Cafe London team, and they can find out all about that at venturecafelondon.org.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Dupsy. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you to all our listeners. If you enjoyed the conversation, please make sure to follow, like, and share. We will be back very soon with another brilliant guest, so stay tuned. And once again, thank you so much, Dupsy, for such a great conversation. We could clearly chat all day. So thank you again, and have a lovely weekend.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.